Hi everybody and welcome back to another Monday, which means I will be reading the next chapter to my novel, Living Nightmare. Last week I read chapter 14, where Ange had left the ward to live with her uncle Travis Barton, and Tobin was now by herself, without friends in the 4th floor ward. A surprise visit from her parents and their unhappiness with the lack of progress shown in her case came also with Dr. Dawson mentioning the possibility of a research trial using hypnosis as a way to treat patients with mental illness. The trial research would be led by a Dr. Howard Owens. Dr. Dawson decided to wait, as Tobin's sadness over the loss of her friend was a sign of improvement, showing emotional growth, while her parents just want her to get better. Today I'll be reading chapter 15. Chapter 15. They fought about stupid things. He lost his job again. She had to get a second job to pay rent. Abby needed glasses, but they lost their health insurance. Sam outgrew his shoes. They were on their first date since Miley's birth 10 months ago. They did dinner, saw a movie, and then decided to stop to buy a bottle of wine. They were arguing about white or red when a teenager walked into the store. He had a gun. He wanted money. The husband tried to talk him down. His wife lifted her hands and begged him to listen to the boy. It took 2 shots to the chest for her husband to fall. 10 seconds for her to reach his side. 4 minutes for her to become a widow. Dream Journal. March might have lacked in letters and visits, but made up for it in its new patients. The first to arrive were a pair of identical twins, 26 years of age. They were admitted on the 2nd Saturday of the month. Tobin was in a funk. Ange's letters made the ward bearable, and while she read the previous ones daily, the lack of new ones had shadows darkening her heart. It took the twins to bring her out of her room and her depression. She was drawing in the common room when she saw them. It didn't escape her that the situation was similar to her first meeting with Ange, though the twins didn't have her exuberance. Nurse Joe introduced them to the patients as a group. Everyone, meet Frank and Fred. He did a quick rundown of the patients' names, pointing as he said them, then told the twins to get comfortable. Supper was in 3 hours. Comfortable, as if that was possible. The nurse nudged them further into the room before moving to his favorite watch post by the 4 windows. Tobin tracked Joe's progress, waiting for him to cross his arms before she turned her attention to the twins. They hovered a few feet into the room, looking at each other in silence. Watching their facial expressions, Tobin got the odd feeling they were having a silent conversation. Scientific curiosity, a gift inherited from her mother, arose within her. She gave up drawing, putting down her blue crayon to focus on the twins. Their likeness was uncanny. Their eyes were a tad too big for their oval faces, honey brown with the barest hint of emerald flecks around the pupils, framed by straight lashes. Their chin came to narrowed points. One twin arched a dark brow, the other mimicked in perfect unison. They began to walk across the room, heading toward the tables. Tobin wasn't the only person eyeing them. Lacey and the plum-haired girl twisted in their seats on the couch to watch the twins' progress. Tobin could guess why. Tall, athletically built, complete with broad shoulders and heavy body mass, the twins made an impressive display. Their hair was sand brown, spiked at the top and shiny. They had high cheekbones, sharp enough to make a model envious, with just the faintest of scruff on the lower half of their faces. Each of their noses had a matching bump on the bridge. Tobin's eyes narrowed as they moved in synchronization, their long legs eating up the ground. She was so lost in her study of the pair that she didn't realize they had decided on her table until they were right in front of her. They looked at her. She stared back. "Care if we sit?" one of them asked. The others stood silent. She shook her head. They took 2 seats across from her and spent the next 10 minutes ignoring her. Not rudely, she reasoned, but because she was a stranger to them. They had each other, and that was enough. A part of her wanted to sit and watch as they conversed, sharing few words but holding a lengthy conversation through looks and gestures. It was as if they had their own language. She couldn't help but wonder if it was a twin thing, or just these two. For the first time since Ange's last letter, Tobin wasn't sad. She was intrigued. After another 10 minutes of subtly studying the newcomers, Tobin went over to the windows to gaze outside. She didn't want to freak them out or get in trouble for making them uncomfortable on their first day. Plus, she had questions only time would answer. Time and research. Joe nodded in her direction. He crossed the room to speak to Nurse Tiffany, giving Tobin her space. Tobin wasn't as discreet in her observations as she intended. In her next session with Dr. Dawson, he asked what she thought of the twins, and if she had talked to them. Someone had noticed her interest and babbled. Tobin guessed that someone was Nurse Patricia. Had it been Tiffany, she probably would have assumed that Tobin had a crush on them, and might have even tried to nudge them into Snapchats together. "Don't want to talk about them?" Dr. Dawson asked. She cursed her stupidity in thinking she could follow the twins and not have someone question her interest. She hadn't been stalking them, just keeping an eye on them when they were around. Tobin threaded her fingers on her lap. "There's nothing to say. I've never met twins before." "Is that why you watch them?" She didn't answer and changed the subject, thankful that he let it go. When the session ended and she returned to the common room, the twins were watching television. Tobin stared at the back of their heads and felt sick. She was doing what the patients did to her. Staring, studying. She might not have been judging them, but she wasn't any better than the patients. She resented. Worse, she worried, when the twins aware of her watching them. Before bed, Tobin went over what she knew. Their connection to each other was strong, almost too close. They couldn't stand being apart. For 2 rather macho-looking men in their mid-20s, it was telling that they yelled at the staff when they learned that they couldn't share a room. Dr. Watts, who would take them on as a patient, had to explain the decision. They had cried. Hugging her pillow, Tobin couldn't erase the image of the twins on their first night. Shortly before the patients headed off to get ready for bed, Dr. Watts and Dr. Phillips had come into the common room to tell them that there had been a change in room assignments. The twins had argued, pleaded, and then cried. Her heart hurt for them. She had almost told the doctors to leave them alone. How dare Dr. Watts say they couldn't be together? Couldn't she see they felt out of place at Mendwell? And as for Dr. Phillips, was he blind to the fear in their eyes? They were twins, after all. They had shared everything from their first breath. How could the doctor separate them on their first night in a strange place? She later learned that the twins weren't even allowed to share the same doctor. That was extreme in her opinion. Stupid, she mumbled to herself, turning onto her back. Why did she care what their psychiatrists decided? She had to stop obsessing. She didn't know them. Hadn't talked to them once. Besides, it wasn't her business. She had her own problems. Still, it was sad. Marie had come in to calm them. That woman sure had a way about her, not to mention a propensity to hover. Marie seemed to be everywhere. After Tobin's session, she'd run into Marie in the hallways or see her in the cafeteria. She even caught her peeking into the common room most afternoons. She must take a job as head nurse very seriously, thought Tobin, keeping track of the nurses and how they handled their jobs. Either that, or she was just doing the same thing Tobin did with the twins. Watching. Studying. Learning. The twins weren't the only newcomers to Mendwell. When March reached its end and April began to pour down pails of rain to melt the lingering snow, another patient joined the fourth-floor ward. The new arrival came with mystery and misgivings. She had come with a police escort, making her entrance the biggest thing to happen at Mendwell since a past patient attacked one of the nurses and had to be forcibly removed. But there was an even bigger surprise. She was going to be Tobin's roommate. Dr. Dawson joined Tobin in her bedroom as she waited for the new girl to arrive. "I'm sure you two will get along great," he assured her. The patient's name was Hannah, or at least that was what they were calling her. Dr. Dawson confessed that, due to her amnesia, they weren't really certain who she was. A necklace with the name Hannah hanging from it was all the police had to go on. Tobin half listened to the doctor's ramblings. She felt ill, and not just from the anxiety of dealing with a new roommate. She knew that Hannah wouldn't be in the room for long before she would want out. Tobin took a deep breath, hoping to quell the waves of unease in her stomach. She stood there silently, staring at the window. Hannah was about 18 years old. Tobin overheard the nurses, Harding and Patricia, discussing her on her way to breakfast that morning. Patricia didn't seem to like the idea of Hannah coming to the ward. They knew nothing about her. Apparently, she'd been found wandering down a road at midnight in torn jeans and a ripped blouse. Her clothes were blood-splattered, her face and hands as well. "She'll be skittish, which given her circumstances is perfectly normal," Dr. Dawson said to Tobin's back. "If you could help her settle in, show her around." Tobin didn't see how having her as a roommate would help Hannah fit in. What was she supposed to do with the girl? Hannah was already on the fourth floor. Tobin hadn't met her yet. Marie had hustled her to the nurse's station after Dr. Dawson spoke to her. The cop that brought her in was the same man who had found her and taken her to the hospital to be checked out. She had been diagnosed with hysterical amnesia, and the blood on her clothes wasn't just hers. The examining doctor had agreed with the police that it was best for her to stay at the Mendwell Institute, where she could be kept under observation until she regained her memories. If she did. Tobin turned around to face Dr. Dawson. His eyes looked strained, his smile tight. Who was he worried about? Hannah being stuck with Tobin, or Tobin rooming with a potential felon? Whose blood was on Hannah, and how had she lost her memories? Was she a victim? Or... "She's sweet," he said, though floundering a bit without her memories. "I think you'll be able to help each other." Tobin didn't see how. She rolled her eyes. The door softly creaked as it swung open. She glanced toward the doctor, eyeing the newcomer, who stood on the threshold. Standing at about 5 foot, Hannah was curvy with tanned skin. Her hair brushed her shoulders in a raven-colored curtain. Her eyes were a pale shade of lavender. Dr. Dawson was right. Hannah looked sweet. Her button nose, rosebud lips, and heart-shaped face gave her a doll-like appearance. She didn't look threatening, especially in the light blue hospital scrubs she was drowning in. Uncomfortable and twitchy, yes, thought Tobin, though Tobin couldn't fault her for being distressed. Hannah didn't know who she was, and after all the speculation from the police, being examined by strangers, and then getting dumped at Mendwell, Tobin was impressed that the girl was standing upright. Marie gently guided her into the room. "Hannah, dear, this is Tobin. She's your roommate." She placed a hand on Hannah's shoulder, to comfort her or to keep her from running away. Hannah took in the sparsely furnished room, eyebrows lifting at the sight of the handprints on the wall. Her expression was unreadable. Tobin noticed a cut slicing through the girl's left eyebrow. There was bruising along her left cheekbone as well, which only became visible when Hannah pushed her hair behind her ear. Had someone stopped her? Punched her? The thought squeezed Tobin's heart. Their eyes met. Lavender wasn't a common eye color. Hannah's tanned skin and dark hair emphasized the peculiarity of her eyes. It also made them unsettling to stare into. But Tobin refused to blink. She knew how it hurt to see someone flinch. She wouldn't be like the patients who avoided eye contact with her. Maybe having Hannah around wouldn't be a bad thing after all. They could be the creepy-eyed patients of the 4th floor ward. They could start a club. Tobin snorted, smiling inwardly. Hannah dropped her gaze and flushed. Shit. She saw Marie frown in her direction. Okay. I can do this, Tobin thought. I could be normal. She cleared her throat, waiting for Hannah to look at her again. Hi, she said. Hi. Hannah's voice was faint and raspy. They locked eyes again. Tension hardened Tobin's muscles. Marie broke through the awkwardness. Well, I think we should leave the two of you to get acquainted. She gave the doctor a pointed look. Yes, right, he said, rising and joining Marie at the door. Of course. They left the room without another word. Tobin fidgeted. Should she sit? Tell Hannah to? She glanced at the open door, hoping that Marie would return. The new girl spoke up. Well, this isn't weird. Tobin shrugged, feeling useless. She had no idea what to say. Hannah pointed at the bare mattress, a pile of bedding on the nightstand beside it. So I guess that's my bed? Finally, something she could work with. Yes, here, let me help. Nothing like bonding over the annoyance of bed making, she thought. The two worked in silence, tucking the fitted sheet into place until Hannah spoke again. So, they say you've been here the longest. Tobin straightened. They tell me you have amnesia. Touché, Hannah chuckled, grabbing the white flat sheet. Hysterical amnesia. Sounds cool, right? She shook the sheet, and Tobin snatched the other end. Guess you heard about me, huh? A bit. It's shit, not knowing who I am. Hannah tugged the sheet hard, ripping it from Tobin's hands. And they all think it's fine to tell strangers. Does that seem fair? Tobin glanced at her empty hands. Was she supposed to answer? Hannah let out a harsh laugh. Sorry. I'm acting like a bitch. It just really sucks. She stopped making the bed and sat, the sheet pooling to the floor. Unsure what to do. Tobin sat too. How long have you been here? Hannah asked, quickly adding, You don't have to answer. Tobin bit her lip. She disliked talking about herself. She glanced at the girl, who stared at her hands, shoulders drawn up to her ears. She was nervous. Tobin took a breath. 7. Almost 8 years. Wow, really? Why? Sorry, it's just, you don't look crazy. Thanks, I think. I'm being a bitchy again, aren't I? Hannah scrunched her nose. I don't mean to be, it's just... When I think about mental patients, I see people rocking back and forth, talking to themselves and drooling. Oh, crap. She covered her mouth, eyes wide. What's wrong with me? That's a horrible thing to say. Tobin shook her head. No, it's more of a cliche on mental patients. I suppose that's how most people see us. Hannah. Maybe. She shrugged. Hannah. You know, I'm not even sure that's my name. How messed up is that? She touched her neck. They took my necklace for evidence. Is it weird that I sort of feel naked without it? No, it's a piece of your past. It makes sense to miss it. Hannah gave her a grateful smile. What if it's the name of someone I care about? Was I really so full of myself I wanted everyone to know my name? She sighed. I'm ranting. Sorry. You're the first non-professional I've talked to since the cops found me. It's okay, Tobin said. She meant it too. Such drama. It had her thinking of Ange, who would have loved Hannah's story. Of course, she'd turn it into a heroine's traumatic backstory leading to her epiphany and the awakening of her secret power. Tobin rolled her eyes, then pursed her lips. Why hadn't Ange sent another letter? What are you in for? Hannah's question startled her. She flinched and her face heated in embarrassment. What was she supposed to say to that? Her heartbeat quickened. I have bad nightmares. Because I have control issues. That was what Dr. Dawson believed anyway. Hannah raised an eyebrow. That's it? That's nothing. Don't most people have control issues? Good question. Well, that's the end of chapter 15. So we've met a couple new characters, Frank and Fred, the identical twins, and Hannah, who will be sharing a room with Tobin. How long will that last? We will find out in later chapters. Until then, I hope you've been enjoying listening to my chapters from my book, Living Nightmare, which, as I've said before, is the first book in the Other Side of Gifted series. Until next Monday, I hope you all have a fabulous week. Take care and goodbye.